I would like to call to order the Monday, December 18th, 6:30 PM public hearing of the Quincy City Council to order. This public hearing is for Council Order 2023-118, Ordinance Zoning, amending Chapter 375 Zoning, Section 8.0 Special District, adding Section 8.6 MBTA Community Multifamily Overlay District for compliance with MGL's Chapter 40A, Section A, multifamily zoning requirement for MBTA communities. At this point, I would like to ask anyone wishing to come to the podium, state your name and address. If you do not wish to speak and you want to support or have opposition recorded, please sign in the sheet on the table in the back of the chambers, right back there. And we can start with the first person who would like to proceed in front of us.
Good evening, councilors. What's that?
This one's for the ordinance zoning. Next one.
Good evening.
The MBTA Community Multi-Family Overlay District. So anyone looking for the first one for the MBTA that would like to come forward?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes?
Maria Mulligan, 21 Winthrop Ave. I first want to say I'm a little disappointed that you didn't let Stevens and Timmons show their presentation that they showed the other night. I think these people here would have benefited from it. It was a very good presentation. I'll do what I can. I testified at the planning board meeting, excuse me, and I'm going to give you the same testimony because they don't video the planning board meeting, unfortunately. So, sorry. So I testified at the planning board meeting the other night, and we'll share with you a summary of that testimony with some additional thoughts. At the heart of this ordinance is a complex urban planning issue with regional implications. In my opinion, the ordinance provides a short-sighted and represents a reactionary approach to the future urban development, which is not appropriate for the city of Quincy of this size, the seventh largest in Massachusetts. What is needed is a smart strategy where the needs of each neighborhood is properly evaluated through a master planning effort, where have you heard that before, to determine not only the number of housing units, type, sizes, placement, but also the impact such increased populations will have on our city services, schools, traffic, and the ability of our neighborhood to function as a thriving center of the community. Consider these facts. Our city schools are filled to the brim. 10,000 students. How many more students will our schools be expected to absorb? Will we need to build more schools? Our streets are clogged with traffic, both local, cut-through traffic. How will the traffic be handled? And finally, the T stations do not have enough parking to accommodate commuters. Parking rates are expensive. The Quincy T is an eyesore, and the T no longer serves the commuter. In short, the T doesn't work. I am a commuter, and I have been my whole life. I remember a time when I used to go from Wollaston to South Station in 20 minutes. It took me an hour to get back here tonight. Same 7 miles an hour. 7 miles an hour. The state needs to rethink the function of the T and how it will meet the goals of future residents. The planning department expressed that the state law that the ordinance was based on is very limiting, far too prescriptive and inflexible, and doesn't allow municipalities to the opportunity to comply in ways that better fit their community. They also stated that this effort was a paper exercise and that it wouldn't result in a boom in housing units in the short term. As a result, we are left with a rudimentary map of North Quincy and West Quincy with target overlay areas noted in red. Each area is a future neighborhood, and each should be thoughtfully designed to benefit the folks who will live there. The planning department presented some dimensional limitations to allow for up to 8 stories building for a 10,000 square foot lot, for example. But I wonder if this will result in block after block of uniform 8-story apartment buildings that might concentrate a class or a residential type and marginalize them. This harkens back to a time when public housing was concentrated in isolated areas, which stigmatized those who lived there. Now, I realize this is not public housing, but zoning has a way of shaping buildings in its own image. A smarter approach would be to provide more opportunities for smaller apartment buildings in a larger radius of each of the MBTA stations. For example, in Wollaston, where I grew up, there's a really nice mix of single-family houses, large and small, duplexes, small apartment buildings, interspersed throughout. They all have front yards and backyards and porches and street trees, driveways and sidewalks. And they're all near some small commercial storefronts, restaurants, and pharmacies. To me, this is the scale of a neighborhood that folks want and enjoy. Yet the scale that's being proposed in the ordinance seems very different. Please request that the planning department continue to explore more robust, refined, and varied dimensional criteria and design guidelines that will limit the size of buildings and encourage better quality new multifamily housing units and address the particulars of green space and access to public spaces within the target areas so that they will function like Wollaston does right now. The residents of Quincy want a livable city. To get there, consider this. Fix the T first. Quincy should first demand that the state address the troubles with the T immediately. Fix it, expand it, make it more reliable, make it fast and affordable. Expanding housing around the T makes no sense if the T doesn't work, in my opinion. Master plan each neighborhood. Quincy should master plan each neighborhood with the same energy and devotion that they are applying to Quincy Center development. And consider the noble goal of creating a livable city at the center of all of their decision-making, whether it involves housing or new commercial developments. Therefore, I respectfully request that you go back to the drawing board, roll up your sleeves, and implement a proper master planning process that includes the residents. The residents deserve to have a seat at the table when determining the future of their own neighborhood. And finally, work with Councilor Liang and her zoning task force to create a city that is better for everyone. To me, both the MBTA ordinance and Councilor Liang's zoning task force should be developed together. They're both related. Where does the city administration stand on Councilor Liang's resolve? Many residents are ready and anxiously awaiting to work with Councilor Liang and the planning department to realize a more livable city for future generations. Let's make this the start of a conversation about how the city will grow and not an end of one. And let's get to work. I have 4 follow-up questions that I want you guys to deliberate here. The first one, the city's PowerPoint the other night, which was very good, included a sentence on energy efficiency that states, multifamily housing cannot be required to meet higher standards than other uses in the municipality. That sentence makes no sense. Can you please ask for clarification? Second thing, number 2, ferry service is provided at Marina Bay and operated by the MBTA, yet Marina Bay was not identified as a potential overlay. Why is this the case? Question 3, office parks like State Street Office Complex and Crown Colony, Both fall within the target area radiuses of North Quincy and Quincy Adams stations. Yet those areas were not identified on the proposed overlay. Why is this the case? And finally, will the new multifamily housing in the proposed overlay be required to be affordable housing? And if so, how will affordability be achieved? Thank you very much.
Bill Zamzow, 356 Washington, Quincy. First off, I'd like to say, President DeBona, it's nice for you to open in the presentation time tonight because I'd spent the last 10 minutes or so trying to chop down to get under 3 minutes. And I might be able to get down to 4, to at least no more than 4. In any event, allow me to begin by noting that this matter before you is at the last possible moment to weigh in on something that has to be wrapped up this year, something that was rolled out 2 years ago. That's sloppy. Even worse, on the front end of things, when the MBTA Community Act was still under consideration, where was the city officials to offer comment for some of the language problems that are creating some of the problems of massive development coming down the pipeline? For example, seeing the consideration for roughly the 6,000 units built in Quincy in recent years, when most other communities were not actively building. Instead, it would appear that all things considered, by not getting that addressed or asking for consideration, the recent construction in Quincy may well have increased the number of units that will have to be built per what the state is telling Quincy it has to accommodate. That's crazy. Moving along, as for the proposed housing zoning maps, let's look at what I call the North Quincy sausage. Much of it already includes the Abbey Apartments. In other words, the Abbey is being played as working towards compliance, even though nothing will be done to the complex because it's brand new. None of its units will count toward the 14,000 units that are going to be created or potential from this change in zoning. That's crazy. At the same time, the city planning people did not take into consideration the underutilized office space in the former Quincy State Street campus. Those office buildings have high vacancy rates, and quite frankly, I think a lot of them are not coming back anytime soon. There's 45 acres of land in there that they could have zoned to be included in this program, and that would have taken a lot of burden out of slamming South Quincy, West Quincy. And that area already has road access and other things that will make it's really close to the T. There's a retail in the area, there's a supermarket, there's a drugstore. If you're going to redevelop it, several of those buildings should be taken out in a heartbeat and redone. Similarly, in terms of the North Quincy sausage, what about Wollaston Center? Why wasn't that included? Just run it along the tracks and do it there. There's already a lot of planning that works for that. In fact, there's probably 3,000 to 5,000 units of planned or pipelined or expected development elsewhere in the city on top of the 14,000 units proposed tonight. Figure a multiple on residences of more than one person per residence, we're talking 25 or 30,000 people worth of zoning on a community of 100,000 that's already choking on the growth we've had in recent years. That's crazy. And as for West Quincy, as my previous speaker noted, it's not ready for those kinds of people coming into that neighborhood. There's no retail. The talk was, well, we'll see some ground floor retail and it'll sort of grow organically and we'll see what happens. Not going to happen, not going to work. And then there's the claim by the administration that it protected homeowners in West Quincy. That's nonsense. By including some runs of homes here and there from the zoning plan, these owners will lose out on the opportunity to sell their properties at a premium price because they don't have the zoning that the across the street may have. And on top of that, they're going to end up with big bricks right across the street, hemming them in. That is not fair to them. The bigger problem is, here we're talking about a 20% increase potentially in the population of Quincy, at a time when Massachusetts population has long been at least holding steady or declining, and is expected to continue at that point going forward. I don't understand. It makes no sense. No argument. There are housing supply problems in the Commonwealth, but what's planned for Quincy per the MBTA Communities Act poses more potential problems than it may solve. Further, it's predicated upon the woeful T at a time when remotely working is becoming at least part of the work week for many people. And if you spend any time in downtown, you know that those office buildings are redoing their whole structure. People are doing shared desks, and people just aren't going downtown. The commute model is changed. But the MBTA Community Act is arguably fighting the last war, something which not even the Pentagon does anymore. But not to worry. Solicitor Timmons has stated that it's only a zoning overlay and dense development isn't going to happen. Reality, if the solicitor is touting something, expect the exact opposite to eventually hit the fan. Thank you.
All councilors have written correspondence from the following residents: Sean Kernes of 8 Jackson Street in support, and Annabelle Johnson of 36 Garfield Street in opposition. Seeing no further public comment, I close this public hearing at 6:46. I would like to call to order the Monday, December 18th. It's supposed to be 6:35. It's 47 p.m. public hearing of the Quincy City Council order. The public hearing is with Council Order 2023-119 order, Land Disposition Agreement, which is LDA, former Ross Lot. At this point, I would like to ask anyone wishing to speak to come to the podium. Please state your name and address. If you do not wish to speak and you'd like to put in support or opposition, we can do it right in the back. Please sign in the sign-in sheet table at the back of the chambers, and feel free to come right up.
It won't be the first time I've embarrassed myself in front of the city council, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Tim Cahill. I live at 51 Grenwald Road, and I'm here in representation of the Quincy Chamber of Commerce, which I serve as president, in favor of the land disposition agreement at the former Ross Lot. I don't need to go through the details because you know what they are, but to bring more housing, but specifically more retail. A specialty grocer, I think, is something that I know is something that's very much needed here in the city of Quincy, in many areas, but specifically in downtown Quincy. We've lost a number of supermarkets over the years. They've changed over the years, so that we're really dependent on just a few. And that Star Market that is across the road from this land disposition agreement from the Ross Lot is already overwhelmed. So this will be a real good opportunity to sort of spread that business out and allow for people on the other side, next to the Ross Lot, adjacent to the Ross Lot, to walk to the supermarket. All of the new development along Hancock Street and along the back of Kilroy Square will benefit greatly from this, and it will help, I think, bring more people back downtown. If you've been down to the skating rink recently, or at any time since it opened, which is the location of where this project will go, it's amazing the difference of foot traffic that we've seen, and that's just with a skating rink that will be seasonal. This project will bring a lot more of that type of foot traffic that we need, and also draw other realtors, other retail businesses. So in addition to what is proposed next door at a medical office building, having this there, especially with the type of mixed-use development, I think is crucial to the city of Quincy, and I speak highly in favor of this, and as do many, many of our members of the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janet Batson, 116 Connell Street, Quincy. I'm the past chairwoman of the Quincy Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and I was part of the development team as well as the listing 8 real estate agent for Cliveden Place condominiums. I am strongly in favor of this LDA. Cliveden Place condominiums consist of 58 ownership units on McConville Way, across from the proposed project. As only the second COC permit issued in the downtown, the developers and the buyers at Cliveden Place were not only investing units, but also buying into the belief of what Quincy Center would become. Along with the city's investment in infrastructure and parks, the attraction of new restaurants and first-floor specialty shops, this proposed project continues fulfilling that promise that along with and because of the new residential development, larger retailers and service businesses would come to the downtown. I believe, having heard the feedback of hundreds of potential and actual home buyers, that a new supermarket located directly in the new walkable downtown is critical milestone in turning the downtown into a vibrant neighborhood. We should, as a community, support this project and continue to embrace this type of good development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Helen Shiner. I live at 23 Copley Street in Quincy. I am a lifelong resident of Quincy. I'm a real estate broker. I own a small business here in Quincy, but I'm also the vice chair of the Chamber of Commerce. I strongly embrace this project. I think we've seen some great examples over the last couple of years with the activation of the Kilroy Square space, the residences around there, the participation from people all over the city to come to those particular areas. Most recently, we have a great example of people coming to the new skating rink that's been up in that area. There's no parking, there's not a ton of parking, but people still want to be there. They want to be up in this part of the city. I think that the proposed LDA is really terrific, not only for this area of the city, but for the city as a whole. It's going to bring more business opportunities. It's going to give people the medical facility that they've been asking for. And like the old saying says, right, a rising tide raises all boats. This is going to give us additional opportunities to welcome new small businesses into the area in conjunction with the specialty grocer and the other commercial enterprises that are planned for there. Thank you for your time.
Again, Bill Zamsar, 356 Washington Street. No, I'm going to make this quick. I have a few grave concerns about this project. The city bought the property that's under proposal to dispose for $9.25 million 4 years ago. They had to knock down an old building. They probably had to pay some tenants to go away. They probably, at this point, got $11 million into the property. The proposed price, however, is $7.3 million. On top of that, the developer has been set up. I haven't seen the full LDA. I'm not even sure one exists. All I've seen is the order. The developer is going to be set up to build an 800-car garage. And they're going to rent some of it rather than have to go to the trouble and expense to build their own garaging. And they're probably going to get a parking rate akin to what was given out of the Kilroy garage for the O'Connell and the LBC projects that are probably covering half the net to build and operate that garage. That's a problem. The finances don't work. If they want to pay a proper price for the ground, great. The city shouldn't be giving it away at a third discount. And then it shouldn't be giving away parking for nothing. I love Trader Joe's. I used to get sandwiches from their mother store or father store or whatever you want to call it in Pasadena frickin' 45 years ago. They don't have a deli anymore, which is too bad. I know the business. I know what they've done. I know how they've evolved. Be a great addition. But the problem is you can't expect taxpayers to cover the nut for the money that's being given away to help developers develop their projects and make their money and have to come back. This project won't cover its contribution to the LDA's debt. And on top of that, the administration is going to have to come back and probably with a $40 million additional ask on the current authorization of, I don't know, $250, $270 million to get the funding to build the garage. And the garage is predicated upon development of the Messina lot. Well, Slater walked away. Who's going to build on that site? There's a lot of build it and they will come going on here. And on top of that, they're giving it away as they've done at every step along the way on what has been built in the center. We're probably looking at a $5 million negative this year on an annualized basis on the Quincy Center, given this big increase in interest rates. We're probably looking at the same or more next year. And I've looked at it. When we start having the current band debt rollover at the end of this decade, the downtown center is probably running a $5 to $10 million average negative until that bond debt is substantially paid down in 2050. This project was predicated upon spinning off new revenue to the city, not increasing tax revenue because it didn't carry its weight. We got a problem here. wasn't done right, it's not going to cover it, and it's only going to get more negative, and if you approve it, you own it. Thank you.
Clerk of Committees received no written correspondence for this item. Seeing no further public comment, I'd like to close this public hearing at 6:55 PM.
Good evening. This is the public hearing for, I'd like to call the Monday, December 18th, 6:40 public hearing to order. This public hearing is for Council Order 2023-094, utility grant of location, Verizon, Hancock Street at Commander Shea Boulevard. At this point, I would like to ask anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition to come to the podium, state your name and address. If you do not wish to speak but would like your support or opposition recorded, please sign in on the sheet on the table at the back of the chamber. So if there's anybody who'd like to speak in favor or against, could please come up. And seeing none, I would like to close this public hearing at 6:56. So we go on to the next one. I'd like to call the Monday, December 18th, 6:45 PM public hearing to order. This public hearing is for Council Order 2023-130, utility grant of location, Verizon, Broad Street, Field Street. At this point, I'd like to ask anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition to come to the podium, state your name and address. If you do not wish to speak but would like to show your support or opposition recorded, please sign in on the sheet on the table at the back of the chamber. So anybody needing to come up and speak for or against? Seeing none, seeing not further public comment, I'll close this public hearing at 6:57. I made up some time that you slacked on, just to let you know.
Good job.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to open up the ordinance committee meeting at 6:57, we'll call it. I'll start off with the open meeting law that I have to read into the record pursuant to the open meeting law. Any person who may make an audio or video recording of the public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium, attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Jen, could you call the roll?
Counselor Andronico. Present. Counselor King. Present. Counselor Devine. Present. Counselor DeBona. Present. Counselor Harris. Present. Counselor Liang. Present. Counselor Mahoney. Present. Counselor Phelan. Present. Chairman McCarthy.
Present.
9 members.
Thank you. Tonight, 2 items that we wanted to bring back this evening. We had a few counselors that were missing last week on Wednesday when we had a presentation by Jim Fatsis in Planning and Jim Timmons from the City Solicitor's Office. The first item is the 2023-118 ordinance zoning, amending Chapter 375 zoning, Section 8.0, Special District, adding 8.6 MBTA Community Multifamily Overlay District for compliance with Mass General Law 40A, Section 3A, multifamily zoning requirement for MBTA communities. I'd like to make sure that the counselors that were missing have a chance to ask Mr. Fatsis, Mr. Timmons, some questions about this item. I think it's mostly Mr. Timmons that will be asked the questions on the items, but Mr. Fatsis might chime in. So I'll open it up right now to everyone here if they have any comments, concerns, and questions. Chair recognizes Councilor Liang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this would probably be, I'll start with you, Mr. Fatsis, and then if you're not the one to answer the question, just let me know who I should direct it to. But as I understand it, the reason why we're even discussing this at all is because it's a state mandate that's coming down. And I know that there's a lot going on at the state level right now, particularly with the MBTA, and so just the two of them working together, I can't imagine the delays and the conversations and things actually moving forward. So while we're taking a next step because we need to, which is fine, right? We're doing our job. Do you have any sense of what's going on at the state level once this passes, not just our community, but any community in Massachusetts, right? What's the next step that they're taking to actually ensure that their goal is being realized? Because again, we're doing what we're supposed to, but that doesn't mean that that goal is actually going to happen, right? So I'm really just out of curiosity, do you know about any of that? Have they communicated any of that to you? If you don't, I completely understand, but I thought I'd ask.
Really not. The only comment I would make is that this is a guideline coming from the MBTA. This is what they have proposed. They have asked the cities and towns that are rapid transit users like ourselves and those that are also on the commuter rail to meet a set of guidelines which allows for future development around MBTA stations. It's as simple as that. It is not a mandate. Some of what you may have heard is, now they're going to force the city to build X amount of units of housing. That is not true. The ability for someone to build around a T station with a little less stringent rules is available to them. But there will still be site plan review, there will still be other items that allows us to condition these projects as they go forward, and they're common sense based. Again, I can't speak to the MBTA's ultimate outcome, but I can say that their goals are lofty. They're trying to put them out there for others to follow. A lot of what my staff and I have worked with, the council and made ourselves available to anybody that wanted to understand it. This has been on our website for a long period of time. And again, what we're doing tonight is basically meeting a state determination that we would be in violation of state law if we were not to embrace this process as it is put before us. So that would be my opening, and if there's more from a legal standpoint, I would prefer Mr. Timmons, the solicitor, take a shot at that.
No, I appreciate it. And I think, you actually led me to my second question, which is, and I apologize if you covered this during the Wednesday meeting. I wasn't here, unfortunately, but it says here on page 4 of 9, 8.6.4, the special permit granting authority, it says the planning board is authorized to approve or disapprove, right? The permits, the site plans, et cetera. And so just like you said, not unlike other projects, they do have to go through a process. It's not like this passes and all of a sudden somebody comes in, buys a property, and then boom, I can build it, right? Like we still have to go through the processes in place to ensure that there is a public input process and that people who are on the planning board have an opportunity to review, right, traffic studies, et cetera. Like I've been to planning board meetings where I've had conversations with folks and they're diligent in catching things that I didn't even think of or that residents didn't bring to my attention, but they have noticed. And so I trust that process. And I just want to, again, reaffirm what you're saying, what I'm reading here, that process holds true for this district as well, correct?
Yes, but Mr. Timmons is going to give you his view.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fatsis.
I think you misunderstand something if you believe that the city retains a right to approve or disapprove a project, because the city does not. The whole point of this law is that if someone comes forward with something, we can engage in site plan review, but there's not an approve, disapprove mechanism. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
No, thank you for clarifying. And then the last question I just had then too was on the affordability requirements. Can you just explain to me what those are and what we can expect to see here? Is it going to be where folks are required to build a certain percentage of affordability, or do they have the option to pay like other projects do now?
Okay.
In lieu of building the affordable units?
The affordability is kind of out in a parallel universe, the affordability component. What this zoning amendment addresses is the creation of housing and eliminating barriers to housing. And traditionally, in a lot of communities, an affordable component would result in the elimination of units. So in other words, someone would build a smaller project if they were required to have a certain number of affordable units because they just couldn't afford to do it. So what the state's done under Section 3A is they're eliminating the requirement that there be affordability here in order to encourage maximum unit production. However, the way our ordinance was written, and it's consistent with what the state allowed for, we get to retain what we've done in our city as far as imposing 10% affordable requirement. So the component of Quincy zoning ordinance that relates to affordability, which is a 10% requirement, that's the threshold you can't exceed under Section 3A, the amendment before you. Quincy does not exceed that, so we'll retain our affordability.
Great, okay. And then the last question I think I have on this is just for process, right? With this district that we're creating, I sort of liken it to like the URDP, right? We're creating a district that's specific for a goal that we have in mind. And with URDPs, we've had changes to it over the years, right? It's not like the first URDP that was set for downtown is just that, and we haven't made any changes. We've made changes over time to adapt to what the needs are as we grow as a city, right? So does that hold true for this as well? That yes, this might be something that we're looking to implement, right, today in 2023, right? But in months or years from now, if things need to be changed to this zoning, amendments can be made to it in the future, correct?
Well, it's interesting because following your analogy, where Section 3A is different, Mr. Fatsis has said it, Rob Stevens has said it, I've said it, but for whatever reason, it's a tough message for people to absorb. There's no mandate here. This is an overlay district, and the point of it is to eliminate barriers to housing. So down the road, like we have other overlay districts in our zoning ordinance that they sit there, and if something comes up, then they come into play, but if not, they don't. We would have the right to amend it, I expect, down the road, but we'd have to go to the legislature to do so. That'd be the one difference. It wouldn't be typical of the zoning amendment work that you're familiar with.
Okay.
But by the same token, under the URDP, we had specific objectives, and we were trying to, perform in order to meet certain goals. That's not what 3A is about. 3A is more, we need to eliminate barriers to housing. This is how we're going to do it. But there's no mandate that Quincy create a certain number of units. It was just, the mandate was, you need to have a district that would allow for up to a certain number.
Okay.
So that's the difference there. So the answer to your question is it's a little, not ambiguous, but a little complex, but the question is too. So the URDP goal factor is not present in 3A. The likelihood that we want to amend it, therefore, is less likely.
Yep.
But if we want to, we're going to have to go to the state.
Sure. As long as the answer is not no, that's all I was really looking for, because it was brought up earlier, Nick, I think a couple of times over the course of the last couple of weeks, that when I, had proposed and still want to, I'm very excited about the citywide rezoning effort that's going to take quite a bit of work and, effort from a lot of people. We've had great conversations with the administration about it, and we're all ready to move forward with it. So I just want to make sure that this isn't going to be then out of play when we're looking to do something like that, right? So again, as long as it's not a no, that's really all I was looking for. But that's all I have for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Mrs. Mahoney?
I'm not sure. So maybe, Mr. Timmons, if you could, I think it could be to both of you. So just touching upon some of the public hearing when we talked about the URDP for Wollaston, why Wollaston wasn't included in this, it's because we have a URDP, and we're controlling, because of the URDP, we're kind of controlling what we want to be developed in the Wollaston area, and if we were to add this overlay to that, it would cause some confusion. I just want to make,
Right.
so could you confirm that for me?
Yeah, if we If we introduce this overlay district into Wollaston, it would raise some havoc because there, in that district, there are going to be more specific goals.
Okay. And I think that answers one of the questions. And then another question that came from the public hearing, and I'm not trying to, I just think it's important. I think in the North Quincy and in the Ward 4 area that we have Crown Colony and we have the State Street, which are mostly commercial, but we do have some residential units up in the Crown Colony area. Why were those eliminated from that, just out of curiosity, out of the overlay?
Well, that might be someone from planning, but I know that 80% of the reason was Councilor Devine was with us during the summer and expressed, the preferences of folks in his ward about how they would be treated.
Which is perfectly fine. I just want to make sure over the summer, it wasn't discussed in public, so I think it's important, and Mr. Devine, Councilor Devine can actually add to it as well.
The MBTA also determined that it has to be within a half a mile of a T station. In North Quincy, you actually are going to be within that area. If you remember, the map is really showing the other side of the tracks from where the Abbey is.
Yep.
And those buildings are commercial at this time. As you may or may not know, the largest owner of land over there is Granite Telecom.
Yep.
And they have moved over to the Heritage Building. This is, in fact, right next to the MBTA, so it really does offer itself up in an area where you don't have to go in. And basically, as Councilor Devine was looking to, if you would protect the neighborhoods that were going to be largely impacted with the Res B, the 2 families, the 3 families, the smaller units. This area in North Quincy allowed us to use enough area that met, again, the guidelines set up by the MBTA. So they put out their guidelines. This works, and it is not an impact in North Quincy to an area full of smaller homes and
And then
houses
even though
in that
this is an overlay, because it's pretty much an overlay what's happening, so will there be public hearings? How, because you're saying they'll go to planning and they'll go to zoning, but there won't necessarily be ward public hearings about what's happening in the development. Will that change?
It's kind of early to say exactly what's going to happen, because again, there's some assumption that the city determines what public, what owners of a property can do. Depending on what they want to do, they would come to us and, tell us what their needs are, tell us what their thoughts are. But as the solicitor pointed out, it makes it a little easier because of setbacks, things of that nature. And
Just one other point, sorry.
one other point.
Excuse me. Mr. Fatsis would allow me, he's very gracious to me. Something like a
cutting
public... At least I think that. I hope he does, too. Public meetings, like hypothetically, a project comes up near the Quincy Adams T. Council Devine wants to have a meeting before anything goes on. He can do that, but the one thing that's going to happen under 3A is you can't continue the hearing, or you can't delay the hearing. You can't use these hearing processes to delay what's going on as far as the development goes. I should say the hearing preferences to delay the process. So that's going to be the one issue. If a council wants to have a meeting, they can certainly have the meeting, but there's going to be a tighter clock on these types of projects. That's really the only difference. It's not going to radically change things where there's less public input. It will exist, but you can't have these multiple meetings.
Yeah, so it's going to take out some of the neighbors' ability to kind of to have those discussions, because this does give the power to the developer to be able to, or whoever purchases property, to be able to, they take away some of the barriers from being able to develop. I understand that. So my last question would be, so I know what you're saying, this is something we're doing because it's a state mandate, but once this passes, if somebody buys a property, let's say in the Adams T Station area, these rules are in place, so those developments could start, you're saying they may not start, but they could start as early as next year.
Sure, I mean, people could start at any point once this passes.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that's clear, because when we were talking about it a little bit earlier, it was like, once this, it's mandated by the state, but once this passes, there could be some changes that are happening in those areas, so I think people should be aware of that, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Phelan? Good. Oh, Chair recognizes Counselor Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically overlooking, had a chance to read all that, also had a chance to talk with the Ward 4 counselor, because this is really affecting his area, and he let me know that there's been tons of he's made some changes and some inputs into it to make it work for the neighbors there. So, I think where it is a state mandate, it's what it is, and, I'll be voting in favor tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Chair recognizes Counselor DeBona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we spoke a lot about this in Wednesday's meeting of the Ordinance Committee. I know we're opening up tonight, but just recapping a little bit what went on and transpired in that meeting, and talked a little bit about, obviously, the zoning. It looks like Quincy, is going to be punished for the other communities that are far behind in development. We've been leaders here, 90% on the top half here throughout the state of Massachusetts, and we're going to be punished for these other inadequate cities and towns across the Commonwealth, what they haven't been able to do or been far lagging behind. I believe the state is going to be, has failed to maintain an adequate infrastructure to support this type of housing. They play a part in this too. Never mind the fact that the MBTA capital improvement plan on the red line is not going to be starting until December 2024, which is a whole year away. You're going to be working on these red lines improvements and trying to have us doing construction in the city to do all this multi-housing units. Talk about traffic. I mean, I talked about it at the last meeting. The Boston area is the fourth worst in the entire world, and we're second right behind Chicago. So to tell you a lot about this particular area, especially Quincy as the cut-through area that I spoke about at the last meeting, talk about putting more traffic in the city and congesting it, especially a night like tonight with the rain and the winds and the storms, and there's power outages across the city. About half of the city is still down with power outage since 11 a.m. I mean, you're looking to construct all these, but, the MBTA and the state has to do their part too. So they have to consider the fact that we've come to the table, put 610 new units right on the MBTA line there in North Quincy, which is just about underway and done, and the second last phase has been constructed and been now leasing. So then you're going to try to push it into West Quincy particular area. It's too bad that Quincy's been one of the leaders out there in redevelopment, especially around our T stations. I just feel that we're almost put in a situation where the gun is put to our heads. We're kind of like, okay, well, Quincy, you guys are going to have to figure this out, and even though you've done all this redevelopment and done a really good job, but guess what? We're still going to put 14,000 more units out there that you guys have to really try to figure out. And talk about elections. I mean, we all get elected up here. How do you go out in the street and say, well, we have to do all these units, and what are we going to do about it? Where the state is almost mandating it for us to do it. So. And my last note, and I'll finish up on this, is I talked a lot about Residential A, and our single-family areas throughout the city. And as we really construct in these downtown areas and these particular MBTA stops, we really have to consider the fact that the single families out there, the ones that are caught in the middle of the pickle of having all this high-end multi-units being put in their particular neighborhoods, we have to protect the integrity of these other neighborhoods, especially the peninsulas that have a one-way system in and a one-way system out, that I'm really concerned with the traffic and the congestion that it's going to put in the city. So It's something that we all have to figure out, especially in the next phase of the next term, in the next year of 2024, that we need to rezone a lot of areas throughout the city and take a hard look. I know I talked to planning up here on Wednesday, that we have to protect those neighborhoods, the integrity, the harmony of those sections. So I'm looking forward more deliberations with this council about rezoning, because we're going to be put in a pickle here. And unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, we're going to be looking into it in 2024. But thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Chair recognizes Counselor Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. Having gone through similar situations where the state or the federal government mandates things that we cannot help, whether it's a small cell station on a pole or a cell station on top of a building, which I've had to experience and deal with. And you know what? That's why we come and we ask to get elected to, fight the fight and do what we can do to protect everybody and make it right. But, moving forward, I believe we have to move forward with this. I've experienced it again in Ward 6. And as far as the North Quincy project is concerned, each month I see a different thing. A different thing going on, especially in the retail units. It's flourishing, and in North Quincy, it cost me a few bucks for a strawberry cream cake at the new Baguettes. The place was packed. It took me an hour to get through for a Christmas party. So there is good things that come about from it. But did I say it right? Is that the name of it? All right. But I didn't read the receipt, but it was. But that being said, on 2023-118, I'll just go forward first and make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Counselor Harris. On the motion, Counselor Devine.
I wanted to talk first. Yeah, okay.
I'm going to you on the.
Oh, okay. I wanted to first thank the people that came out, Mrs. Mulligan, Mr. Zhao, and I think Mrs. Johnson sent a letter, and somebody else. I really appreciate all the constituents coming forward and helping in this process, because we're all in this together. And in order to make decisions for everyone, I have to, I need help. So I appreciate that. And then in the last meeting, Councilor Kane spoke about how, the state is really being difficult towards us. And Councilor Andronico talked also about how he and I had been working over the summer. Everybody's been very involved in this, and we agree with, certain things we have to do. So we're doing our best to meet all the requirements. And I hear all my constituents. My wife and I personally went out and met dozens of them, tried to help explain certain situations. So we're working hard for all of you, and I appreciate everybody's effort, and all the council, all the planning, the solicitors. Everybody's working diligently. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. So we have a motion by Counselor Harris on 2023-118, the ordinance for zoning amending Chapter 375 zoning. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda for ordinance 2023-119, the LDA, the land disposition agreement over at the former Ross lot. Again, we had a good presentation, a solid presentation last week. I know that the councilors got a package on this that we're missing, and I know maybe some of the other councilors had additional questions. So with that, I'll open it up to anyone who has any LDA questions. Chair recognizes Councilor Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if I have a question in here. I'm sure I'll probably get to one as I'm thinking this through, but I wasn't able to make last week's meeting. Even prior to that, I had an opportunity to speak with the folks who are going to be coming in with DJ and, the people who are proposing this project. and just had a chance to sit down for quite a while, a few hours actually, to go through this and ask all the questions that I had about my concerns with any project in the downtown, right? Which is to make sure that at the end of the day, it's something that benefits the city, not just financially, but, you know, economically, with bringing more people here to the city who are interested in coming here. And I can't say anything more about how thorough DJ and his team are with the work that they do here in the city. This is not their first project here. Every time we've sat down and talked about any project, and actually that started back in 2016, I think was the first time you came to the city, DJ, it was always about what can I deliver to the city, not just financial benefit, but with economic benefit as well. And you've shown that investment over the time here, not just with your projects and actually delivering and seeing things through, which is what we need here, especially in the downtown, but also just personally, you're somebody who's very committed to making sure that you're out and about in the community, that you get to know the community very well, so that you're not just assuming what the community wants, but actually seeing what the community needs and then actually delivering on that. And so I appreciate the conversation. I apologize for not being here to see the full presentation last week, but the only questions I have are more, again, just it's sort of assurances from the conversations that we have, right, about my understanding of things. And there's 3 of them, which is, the first is just understanding that reversion piece, the reversion language about how much time is going to pass before there's a shovel in the ground, that if it's not going to show progress at all, that the land will come back to us. And so I just wanted to, again, that question was already answered when we had the conversation, but I, again, today, since it's in front of me, just want to get, again, just sort of like a reassurance or like a reiteration of what that language means for us. And I'm not sure who to direct that to. If you could help me, Mr. Chairman.
I think we talked about that a little bit last Wednesday. You can bring Jim up, or if you...
Thank you, everyone, for indulging me
Go to
then
Mr.
from the
Walker.
repetition of this. I appreciate
Mr.
it.
Walker's got his hand up. I'll recognize Mr. Walker.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Council, for the question. Yeah, it was something we did discuss during the meeting last week, but within the LDA, the outside closing date, and the closing date is when everything has to be signed, sealed, and delivered. That's when we actually transfer the property. We don't transfer the property until all of these conditions are met. That outside date is 2026, but talking to the developer, he would prefer that closing date to be far in advance of that, including sometime perhaps this coming year. But there are those protections, as there have been in every LDA, that at some point that land does revert back to the city, or the city has rights to extinguish the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. Again, I understood that from the conversation. I just wanted to hear it again, I think, because I'm a little bit, you know, it's one of those things where we expected, I think, a lot down in this area, and people keep saying it's a bridge to nowhere and all that. We all want something to come here, right? And now there is. And so I'm really excited about that. I think I'm just coming into it with a little bit of trepidation because, you know, things happen that are completely out of our control, and I understand that. And so I just want to make sure that anticipating some other completely wild thing that's out of our control, do we get the land back, right? And it sounds like it does, and that's what I heard the first time, so I appreciate that. The second was just with the taxes, and so again, my understanding is that right now there's nothing there, there's nothing built there to pay taxes to the city on, right? Once this is built, they're paying taxes in full to the city, correct? And I assume that was answered at the last meeting as well. Okay, again, thank you for indulging the repetition on all of this. And then the last question I have is just the revenue on the garage. And so I see the benefit of it when we had the conversation about how much revenue we're getting from the garage here that we already have built in the downtown. So I'm excited to see that the revenues coming from here will be high as well. I just want to, again, confirm that the revenues from this garage will be coming back to the city as well, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes. But as I mentioned in the last meeting, Councilor, that the parking setup and how it is all going to play out, that is part 3 of this 3-part series of votes that this
Gotcha.
body is going to
Okay.
be asked for.
Okay, that's all I had then. Thank you. Again, I appreciate it.
Any other questions on the LDA? Councilor DeBona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick comments. We deliberated a little bit about this on Wednesday night with the ordinance committee meeting, and we were just talking about the MBTA not having the infrastructure in place. Well, guess what? The infrastructure is in place for this. You know, the General's Bridge is built. I know a lot of folks out there said it's a bridge to nowhere. It's not a bridge to nowhere. There's going to be, you know, we get this involved, and the next thing you know, we're going to be moving on to the next phase, which is on the other side of the Ross lot, the old Ross garage. This is the next segment in place. You know, I looked around the downtown and looked at all the other parcels, especially on the other side. everybody's kind of done their part. The LBC has done their part with Nova Suites. O'Connell Building has done their parts with Chestnut Place. There's the garage is built on that particular side. And then you look on the other side and you see the Galvins have done their part with the Cliveden Place condos, and the infrastructure is in place for this. So this is the next piece of the puzzle to do this phase, and this phase of the Ross lot, the Ross garage lot side. I know that we're going to have 800 so parking spots in that. I think it's a 300 and 500 split between the residential that'll be on that side and the grocers, the new grocer parking that's going to be done for there. So we're in the next phase, and I'm looking forward to moving in the right direction and moving the city forward for our taxes and our tax base. And I think it's a perfect location. I think the location on that corner there is going to catch the eye of all those folks going through that particular Walter Hannon Parkway area. And I'm looking forward to it. And then with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve. I put that in the form of a motion.
A motion made by Councilor DeBona to approve 2023-119, the LDA. On the motion, Councilor Mahoney.
I'm not sure who to, and I wasn't here at the last meeting either, so I apologize. And I will say that I was not able to go through as thoroughly as I wanted to. I know we're talking about the specialty grocery store, and that 2026 is when we think we'll have everything tied up, and I know that DJ's hoping it's going to be by 2024. But once this gets signed, is this something that will the specialty grocery store that we're talking about, is that what's going to make it finalized, so that we'll know that a Trader Joe's is coming here once the LDA passes? I'm just curious. Does anybody know that? I mean, because we were talking about a specialty grocery store, so I'm curious, like, what, and we're speculating that it's Trader Joe's because it's in a picture. But I guess, is there any guarantee in the LDA that we're getting a Trader Joe's? Is the LDA going to be, can somebody answer that?
The short straw on that.
Nobody's jumping too fast, I'm sorry.
I decided it was my turn to stand up.
I'm sorry.
As the deal, and again, I could have our attorneys, or for that matter, their attorneys come up, but it is a specialty grocer. That is basically what we've all heard, and we still have confidentiality in this room to speak to it. I wouldn't choose to speculate, but an awful lot of time, effort, and planning and money has been poured into this process with an expectation, and I'll leave that expectation kind of there because I'm not at liberty.
Well, then I guess I'd like to set the record straight then, because there is some speculation that I voted no for Trader Joe's to come to Quincy, and I've never voted no for Trader Joe's to come to Quincy. As we're speaking tonight, we can't actually vote for Trader Joe's to come to Quincy, anybody here on this board. So I guess, because tonight is my last meeting, I just would like to set that record straight, that I never voted for Trader Joe's not to come here to Quincy, but I'm very happy to support this development and hope that Trader Joe's does come, because I will be supporting that. I know that we also had an overlay in West Quincy on Center Street project, which I actually voted yes for that overlay project because we were promised by the developer that we would have a specialty grocery store and an ice cream shop come. I don't believe those are coming. So these types of deals that come before us at the city council, which are very important to the development of our city, the promises of the things that are coming, we can't really say until we know. Because in all of the other LDAs we had, which rightfully so, we don't have these things now. We were talking about many different types of developers that were coming. So I just wanted to mention that because I do hope a Trader Joe's does come, and I will be supporting the LDA, and you don't have to go any further. I just wanted to make sure we set the record straight that there was some miscommunication out there, that I voted no for a Trader Joe's, and that never happened. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Fatsis. All set, Councilor? So a motion by Councilor DeBona for 2023-119. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. That takes care of our ordinance committee meeting at 7:35. Thank you.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Quincy City Council meeting, Monday, December 18th, 2023. It is now 7:40 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico. Counselor Kane. Counselor Devine. Counselor Harris. Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor Phelan. President DeBona.
Present.
9 members, you have a quorum.
9 members, we have a quorum. Please stand if you can. And if we can get a moment of silence, and please use it as you wish. And please turn to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the open meeting law.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get into our agenda items, with the consent of the body, if everyone's okay with this, I'd like to bring forward our State Representative Tacky Chan just for a few words. And I'd also like to recognize a couple of the elected officials, or former elected officials that were here tonight. I got Kevin Coughlin, the former Ward 3 counselor. We had Tim Cahill that was here, the former at-large counselor. We have Bob Sarasoli in the back, the former state representative, and also IG as well. And also Tim Cahill that also was state treasurer and county treasurer as well. So is there any other former electeds that are here I missed? All right, Tacky Chan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the council for your indulgence and allowing me to speak very quickly. On behalf of Speaker Mariano, Senator John Keenan, Representative Bruce Ayers, we just want to extend our congratulations on your successful session, but also on some of your members that are departing. Councilor Mahoney, Councilor Phelan, Councilor Dronico, we appreciate your good work on your time with the council, and all we want to do is wish you all happy holidays and a great success on your next endeavors. And the delegation has provided you citations, which the president has, and that's all. So thank you very much for your work, and have a happy holiday.
Thank you, Rep. Chan. So, Madam Clerk, we're going to go into the honoring of the Friends of Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, and I'd like to recognize Councilor Mahoney. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. So tonight, I asked the indulgence of the council to bring before the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, the Friends of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater. And I want to start by just a little bit of the history. As we all know, the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater was projected to potentially be filled in. And I really want to thank Councilor Phelan for taking a leadership role in this, because he stood out in front of City Hall with many people before the Friends were developed to say that this was something that should not happen, or at least it should not happen without public input. And in the end, the wise choice of the administration was to decide that this would not happen. And if it wasn't for your leadership, Councilor Phelan, I believe it might have happened. So I thank you very much. So tonight, but what I'd like to state too is that from the birth of those conversations, and it was a misdirect. I do believe it was a misdirect from the administration, but it was a quick redirect. And the redirect that happened was the birth of the Friends of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater. And through the collaboration of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, the Friends of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, and this administration working with the Parks and Recreation Department and the Commissioner of Natural Resources, they were able to not only reinvigorate the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, but for weeks over the summer on Friday nights, hundreds and hundreds of people came out to enjoy what was the vision of what Ruth Gordon Amphitheater was supposed to be. So tonight, the City Council would like to put a presentation together in recognition of the Friends of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater. And this citation says, in recognition of your dedication to preserving and protecting the historical, architectural, unique Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, the Friends of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, with support of the administration, has brought back to life this important city landmark. Your hard work and collaboration amplifies how working together great things can be achieved. We commend everyone involved for the hard work and the dedication of this important cause. And this is from all of the city councilors, so I want to thank you all for doing that. I want to thank the administration as well, and I know the administration saw the light of what was happening, and the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater will have a life again with funding and with commitments from this city council. Thank you very much. I thought they'd be closer. So if I could, I'd like to ask Sarah to come up to maybe speak on, oop, where is she? Oh, there she is. Come on over. This is your time to speak to now, to share your friend's story.
Well, thank you, Councilor Mahoney, for your support and for your years of dedication to the people of Quincy. And this is just absolutely fabulous. Look at that. That's amazing. Where is Maria? I don't know where Maria is. Oh, here she Maria's just been with us like from the start and a major part. So on behalf of the Friends of Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, we want to thank you all for this honor. It means so much to be recognized for the work that we're doing to revive this gem in our community. We're the guardians of something special. A beautiful historic amphitheater set amongst the trees in gorgeous Marymount Park, which is even more gorgeous now. Overlooking the water. It was commissioned by the late Mayor Joe Larea and designed by my father, Teowen Trainer, in honor of Quincy's own Ruth Gordon, an Academy Award-winning actress and writer with a unique exuberance and love of life that has been an inspiration for many of us. Ruth's Amphitheater has been a part of Quincy's community for nearly 40 years, hosting countless plays, concerts, camp performances, graduations, and the annual Summerfest that the Larea family kept going for many years. However, as time took its toll on the historic structure, it began to fall into disrepair and disuse. Sometimes, as they say, we don't always realize what we have until we've lost it. Fortunately, we were given a wake-up call and a second chance. We're forever grateful to all the bright-minded and hardworking individuals, many of whom are here today. And I think we would have a great many deal more of them out today if it weren't for the storm, but who rallied together to save the amphitheater. We're also grateful to Councilor Chuck Phelan for, as Councilor Mahoney said, speaking up on our behalf. What began as a quest to save the theater, though, soon grew into a movement as we realized together that it wasn't enough to save the physical space. We wanted to make the amphitheater into something magical once again, bringing new life to its stage and fostering the arts in our community. So this past summer brought some 75 performers to the stage, ranging from young dancers and aspiring musicians at our open mic night in Quincy Rocks to seasoned nationally touring bands like Roomful of Blues and Studio 2. A wide range of shows designed to meet the interests of all brought our community together, touching the hearts of Quincy citizens through music, acting, and song. We could not have done this without our fantastic food vendors, including Black's Creek Barbecue, and our amazing partnership with Break Rock Brewing. We also want to thank the Quincy Sun and Bob Bosworth for shedding light on this important issue from the start, and Quincy Action Television for taping and broadcasting every event. Thank you to our community theater, as well as our architecture team, led by Maria, for their dedication. And most of all, this recognition is for all of you, the hundreds of people, and even thousands of people, actually, who visit our website, who follow us on Facebook, who have shared their time, their ideas, their letters of encouragement. We simply would not be here today without your efforts, because this really has been a movement. Thank you, Mayor Koch, also for hearing the people and changing course, which isn't always easy to do. Thank you, Commissioner Dave Murphy, and your team for partnering with the Friends of RGA this past season in what really became, as Kevin Coughlin coined this term, the RGA Renaissance. What better way to honor the Friends of RGA than by bringing you a song? So with your permission, thank you very much for your permission to bring us a song. Marcus Johnson, grandson of one of our big supporters, Anna Lee Johnson, whom some of you may recognize from his performance this summer as Cat Stevens, is here to sing for you tonight a song that is very fitting, Imagine by John Lennon, as we imagine what the next season may bring for our amphitheater. If we can imagine it, if we can dream it, we can achieve it. Thank you.
It's easy if you try. No matter you are, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living life today. And there's no countries, it's hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. And there's no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. Brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one.
I'd like to open this up to any counselors for any other remarks. I'd like to recognize Counselor Phelan. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just sitting here, remembering back that time and everything, and I'm very glad that I had my small part to do with it. I actually knew your dad, Owen, back there, and he must be looking down and smiling on you right now because of what happened. But the only thing I did was help to save it, and that's nice. And a lot of the other all these other councilors joined in the vote and was unanimous, yeah. So for my small part, to the Friends of Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, thank you so much for saving a great part of the arts and knowing and seeing this summer, I'm having a bit of mobility problems getting around. So, thank you. And
Just a point of privilege, having a person like Chuck Phelan come back to the city council since the late 80s and early 90s and bringing the book of knowledge, the book of wealth, the person of reason, person of fairness, coming into the council chambers for the last 4 years along with Council Mahoney, which I've served 8 of my 10 years of being elected with Ann as well. And all my 8 years of being here, we've never had any music, and it was really nice to hear this tonight. And, just visiting on Fridays throughout the summer at Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, all of us together as a community really brings it together. And then having the ice skating rink here, in this winter, just a year-round festivities across the city. We are a city, but we're all these little neighborhoods, and we keep our community together with people like yourselves. We're going to miss Chuck, we're going to miss Ann, we're going to miss Anthony, we're going to miss the 3 counselors that are going to be leaving us here. But it's been a special 2 years being up here, and to have this, when Councilor Phelan came in with this resolution, he was willing to put it out there and said, okay, who's on board? And the whole council came on board with it. We worked together with Natural Resources, we worked together with Chief of Staff Walker, we worked together with the mayor, and we came to a consensus to let's make it let's do something with this every week. And there was a couple rainouts, and we added a couple weeks, and it was really fun to see all you folks out there, and you bring a community together. So I truly want to thank you at the bottom of my heart that we all could enjoy the music and the camaraderie of each other. So thank you so much. Right now, if I could, I would like to take a quick recess. Would like to get into here, take a few photos, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Okay, we're going to reconvene into the council agenda items now. All right, Madam Clerk, first item on the agenda, please.
Agenda item number 1, 2023-131, an appropriation for $2,115,518 for MSBA ARPA funds Montclair Elementary roof replacement project.
I always said I would like to recognize, but since it's the last meeting, I'll say President recognizes Counselor Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to take this item, it's normally not something we would do at this time of year, but there's already been, speaking with our city clerk, there's already been conversations, and it has been checked by double sources, that since the money is the way it's coming in, it can be put into the finance, and it needs to be financed and advertised, and it will be something the next city council will be dealing with. So I would like to make a motion to place this in finance and advertise.
Motion made by Counselor Phelan to put it into finance and advertise as well. Seconded by Counselor Liang. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. That'll be put into Finance Committee and be advertised as well. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Number 2, 2023-132, an appropriation for $1,440,000, 327 from MSBA ARPA funds Wollaston Elementary roof replacement project.
President recognizes Counselor Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to, this is the same as the previous order and the next one coming up. It's going to be placed into finance and advertised, so I would make a motion to place in finance and advertise.
Motion made to put it in place into Finance Committee and advertised. Do I have a second? Seconded by Counselor Liang. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. That will be put into the Finance Committee and be advertised. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Number 3, 2023-133, an appropriation for $1,768,629 for MSBA ARPA funds Francis W. Parker Elementary boiler replacement project.
President recognizes Counselor Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to once again make a motion to place into finance and advertise.
Motion made to place this into Finance Committee and advertise. Seconded by Counselor, we'll go with Devine this time. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Number 4, 2023-134, resolve support of House Bill 3260, an act providing a study to be conducted on the cost feasibility of implementing a ferry service to the Long Island.
President would like to recognize Counselor Harris. Go right ahead.
Thank you, and councilors and everybody to indulge me. I know it's our last meeting. Again, congratulations to the folks who are leaving us, and I just want to acknowledge that. I've enjoyed my time with you on the council, and I know that there are bigger and better things ahead for you. As my colleagues know, the issue of the Long Island Bridge continues to make headlines as Boston continues to disregard the concerns of Quincy. Newest estimates for rebuilding the bridge would most likely come in at over $200 million. Boston needs to do its homework and study every option for access to the island. They owe this to the taxpayers. Representative Bruce Ayers has filed a bill at the State House, H3260. This bill would create a commission that would oversee the completion of a study that would provide more information on the cost associated with implementing a ferry service to Long Island. This ferry service is much more cost-effective. It's a much more cost-effective alternative to rebuilding the bridge. The commission would be made up of appointees by the legislature and by the governor, as well as an appointee from Boston and an appointee from Quincy. This group would oversee an study to ensure that the decision makers have all the pertinent information on all methods of access to Long Island. This is an issue that will continue to be of importance to Quincy residents, where the entrance to the bridge is only accessible through Squantum and North Quincy. Moving forward, Quincy officials will continue to be united. I am working closely with Mayor Koch, Representative Ayers, and others to defend our interests. Passing this resolution to support Representative Ayers' legislation is a strong step in showing that unity, which then we would, before the end of the if you read, I want to thank everybody who, the folks who jumped on this with me. This would give it an opportunity to be voted on by the end of this, or heard further by the end of this legislation, by the end of the year. So if we pass this, obviously, I'm looking for us to send a letter. I'd love the mayor to send his own letter as well, supporting Bill H3260 that, as far as I'm concerned, our great Representative Bruce Ayers, who is a friend to all of Quincy, has put forward and has been diligent, has been fighting this since before the bridge even came down. So with that, I make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Councilor Harris. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilor Yang. On the motion, I'd like to, President, recognize Councilor Kane.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, Councilor Harris and all my other colleagues for introducing this. I just have a couple questions. I'm happy to support this. There's a number of efforts, I think, coming from the city to defend its position in this bridge being built and looking at alternatives. So this bill was filed, and Bill, I don't know if you have an answer to this, but this bill was filed at the beginning of January. Has it been heard at all in the state?
I'm pretty sure that there was maybe an initial hearing that might have had to take place for it to reach them by the end of this year.
Okay.
But I know that it's been out, it's been there, it's just hasn't been heard. And, it hasn't been heard to the point where I know it made the second page of the Boston Herald, I think it was Sunday Herald a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So it's obviously catching attention. There's a lot of things that are still going on behind the scenes on Quincy's part as well. But this is an alternative method of how we had to spend about $475,000 a few years ago at the beginning, about 5 or 6 years ago, when we hired the expert lawyers, the environmental lawyers, the environmental people who helped us through the process. And this, again, doesn't cost the taxpayer anything except for we need it to be heard in front of the state legislature.
Yes, and I think the portion that's a little difficult is that, one, this is a piece of legislation that needs to be passed by the legislature and then signed by the governor, and then a commission needs to be formed. So I'm assuming that time is of the essence with something like this.
Yeah.
And I would also assume that we've already looked into potential costs of what a ferry would, feasibility of a ferry from Boston to the island. So
Sure.
If the mayor's representative has some information around that, I'd like to know more about that, but also where we are in this entire process, because I think that would be relevant and germane to this
Sure.
conversation.
And on the 16th of February in '23, it was referred to the House, and then at 3/13 in 2023, the Senate concurred, and on 11/8 of '23, there was a hearing on 11 11/20/23, and it was from 1 PM to 5 PM that day. So, and thank you to my state, my state expert here. Again, that, some of that information was out there. Understand when they talked about, and part of that is also the cost of the bridge. And when you think about the cost of steel now, the cost of everything from 6 years ago, it's, quadrupled and tripled.
That's fine, but that's not our problem, the cost of the bridge. That's the city of Boston's problem.
Exactly
to pay
right.
for it. So that's of no material concern here right now. The city of Quincy would not be paying for a bridge.
Exactly.
On Long Island.
But if it was ever to take place, the city of Quincy would be paying through the nose, whether it be for police, whether for dealing with traffic, whether.
No, that's fine. And again,
Dealing with.
this on its very merit is
Sure.
great to show our support to the legislature that we support a feasibility study. But again, it's
Sure.
just a feasibility study, and it doesn't have the teeth that would either be necessary to negate the would-be construction of the bridge,
Right,
right?
right.
And it's just sort of providing a document that would say this is what it would cost as an alternative to your decision that you need to make.
Right.
Right.
And a decision that should have been made 6 years ago, Counselor.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I just want to be clear about all those steps
Right.
and, in connection to the information that I hope we receive
Absolutely.
from the mayor's representative through you,
Absolutely.
Mr. President.
Correspondence at all? Chief of Staff Walker?
Through you, Mr. President, thank you, Counselor. I can say, as we've said from the beginning, from day one, that water transportation is the way to go for Long Island. Part of our case has always been not so much us showing why it's feasible, but the city of Boston has never shown why it's not feasible to do water transportation. And I think that's at least something where the representative's getting here, is to do a full feasibility study on water transportation, what the city of Boston has never done. As part of our multitude of filings at every level of adjudication, we've always said, show us why a ferry is not feasible. And all we get is brushed off, saying, well, ambulances, traffic, can't do it. None of that is good enough, because we all know there are islands out there, there are islands that can provide emergency services to the people that live on those islands. The city of Boston, quite frankly, does not want to look at, in a serious way, the feasibility of water transportation. And I think that's where the rep's going. Overall, Council, to answer the second piece of your question, right now, there's a number of appeals still pending. One is the Chapter 91 waterways license with the DEP. That's being adjudicated as we speak. There are still avenues through the United States Coast Guard where we're going to be able to show that the bridge, from a functional standpoint, doesn't meet any sort of standard that a bridge would be built to in the 21st century. They're essentially saying, we're just rebuilding the bridge that was already there. Well, they're not. They're building a brand-new bridge. And if they're going to build a bridge, they should build it like any other bridge would be built under today's environmental, construction, and navigational standards, and they're not doing that. And that's folding into the ferry service argument. That's part of our overall argument. So there is time. There's a lot of moving pieces. This issue is far from being resolved. Every time there's a ruling here or a ruling there, the city of Boston will say, all right, shovels are coming in tomorrow. Well, that's not the case. That's part of their public relations effort to show progress. There is still a long way to go before the city of Boston is able to put a shovel in the ground and build that bridge. And again, we would just continue to urge, to the strongest extent possible, why don't we look at water transportation?
Shovel in the water, if you will.
If you will.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. No, I appreciate it, because I think some of those updates, provide a little more consternation to folks, especially in Squantum, who are, sitting and waiting, and this is the only thing that they've got by way of information. So again, thank you. This is great. Happy to support it. Thanks for the responses tonight.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you.
President recognizes Councilor McCarthy. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just another kudo to Councilor Harris. I'll also be supporting this. I mean, for years when the bridge was up, there was ferry service talked on both sides. The bridge came down. Boston then made it an economic zoning district. I don't know how many acres are out there, but there's plenty of acres out there beyond what they're proposing out there as a treatment center. And if they have a bridge, they could turn that on at any time. It's funny that, they talk about too many cars on the road, carbon monoxide, environmentalists. I thought the ferry service was a great idea years ago when it was mentioned, and now all of a sudden it goes on the back burner like it's not. So I guess it works when you want to have it, and it doesn't work when you don't want to have it. But I'm in full support of a ferry service and a study done. And hopefully it's with other towns on the South Shore, not just Quincy, to look at a state-of-the-art ferry service that will work for the entire Boston Harbor area. So Councilor Harris has my full support.
Okay, I'd like to President, like to recognize Councilor Devine. Go right ahead.
Just like to say that thank you for putting this forward, Councilor Harris, and that we'll support you and your constituents 100%. Also, I truly believe that, pen and paper is the easiest way to do anything, so we need to exhaust all our options, make sure that we're doing everything right, and to try and not look at every avenue only makes sense. And I also feel for the people that are in East Boston. If they're going to try and shuttle people from East Boston all the way down and around and try and use a bridge to get them out there, a ferry is a very short trip. And we're talking about integrity and people that are in need, that they're pushing this to try and say that, well, we're doing it for humanity. Well, if you're going to do it for humanity, I want to make sure you do it the quickest way, because I don't want to put somebody on a bus for 2.5 hours to ship them all the way when you could do something maybe in your own backyard. And I also wanted to say that Representative Ayers is very good to Ward 4 and very good to Quincy, so I will support him also with any endeavors that he goes through. Thank you.
It's a point of privilege to speak a little bit about this. Happy to co-sponsor this with Councilor Harris on this implementing cost feasibility for the ferry service. Looking back at the past administrations of Boston, the former Tom Menino, God rest his soul, stated in the Cecil report that water transportation works, but it's disregarded by Marty Walsh and disregarded by Michelle Wu, current and last outgoing mayors. But the former mayor had said that that's feasible. We can do ferry service. So why is it that now it's passed on to the different administrations? And I give Councilor Harris a lot of guts to just continue to fight with this, because now we have another problem on our hands, is with all this new construction of multi-units in North Quincy. Going to add to more traffic and more congestion in your ward and throughout the city of Quincy. So do I sympathize? Do I have empathy for the substance use disorder? Absolutely. Alcohol and drug addiction is real. Folks, if we didn't go a long way, we wouldn't have revitalized and build a new Father Bill's, which we all were a part of, which is a new model that has permanent housing, 30 units of permanent housing, and we're going into the winter season. A night like tonight where the power outage is out and folks need a place to be at, we have that Father Bill's. So to say that we don't have empathy and we don't sympathize with people that are going through a tough time with treatment center is false, I guess I could say. So I'm looking forward to pushing this forward, and State Rep Ayers and Councilor Harris has been on the forefront with being the supporter here in Quincy, working with the mayor and the mayor's office on moving this forward. But if Tom Menino said it's okay, then why is Walsh and Wu saying no? And another thing you have to consider the fact is, how long is Wu going to be in office? The next administration can come in and start moving things around. So can we continue the fight here, and happy to support this. So thank you, Councilor Harris. Yes, I'd like to, President, recognize Councilor Harris.
Yeah. I want to, did somebody else want to speak?
No, you.
I'll just be real quick. I'm going to echo, one of the hardest, this has been a very difficult stance. I've taken some criticism from NPR radio, my friend Marjorie Egan, and her co-host there on NPR. That's just one of quite a few, because it's not about not in our backyard. This is about the safety of a lot of people, the traffic, what they're planning on, that we don't even really know, but it's supposed to be a regional recovery center. Councilor McCarthy mentioned the economic opportunity zone that Mayor Walsh instituted. I've even saw a video a few weeks ago where Marty Walsh said that I told him that I was going to meet with him after the election. That was 4 years ago. And that really couldn't be close to the truth, because I never met with him. And I've been all in on this because I know it'll affect the whole city of Quincy, not just Ward 6, the whole city. We're having a hard enough time in Ward 6 along the beach, which we talked about a couple of meetings ago, which we're trying to move forward with a traffic study on the cut-through streets because of our neighbors down in the south of us that need to get into Boston. So that being said, I thank everybody who's spoken tonight, and I really appreciate your support since this happened, and it's going on 6 years this next month. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. So we have a motion made by Counselor Harris to approve. We have a seconded by Counselor Liang. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang.
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
8 members.
8 members in the affirmative, motion carried. Do we have 9 members? Do we have all 9?
Oh, excuse me, 9.
9 members, unanimous vote.
Excuse me.
Motion carries. Does that,
That concludes
that concludes our agenda items for tonight. Approval of previous meeting minutes of December. Motion to approve made by, and seconded by Counselor, motion made by Counselor McCarthy and seconded by Counselor Andronico. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Communication reports from the mayor, other city officers, and city boards. Unfinished business and preceding meeting. Moving on to reports of committees. President would like to recognize Ordinance Committee Chair McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier this evening, we had a public hearing on ordinance zoning amending Chapter 375, Section 8, MBTA Community Multifamily Overlay District for compliance with Mass General Law 40A, Section 3A. I'd like to make a positive recommendation on that.
Positive recommendation and motion to approve made by Counsel McCarthy. Do we have a second? Seconded by Counsel Devine. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, unanimous vote. Motion carries.
Thank you.
ahead.
Also, earlier this evening, we had a public hearing on the LDA land disposition agreement, and I'd like to make a positive recommendation, a motion to approve on 2023-119.
Motion to approve made by Counsel McCarthy. Seconded by Counsel Phelan. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, unanimous. Motion carries. President would like to recognize Counselor McCarthy. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also, I'd like to pull 2022-34. This is an ordinance order that went in amending the rules of the city council with gender-neutral language. Now, we put this in quite some time ago to update some of our ordinances and our language in some of our policies. I'd like to defer to Councilor Liang for a few comments, and then I'd really like to hear if anybody has any comments around the chamber and before we move forward with a vote.
Okay. I will allow it. And President would like to recognize Council Liang. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to note for the record, it's, Mr. Chairman, 2022-33 and 34, because one applies to the city council rule book and the other applies to the city code. So, but Mr. President, thank you for indulging me. So the reason why I introduced this last year was because I was going through the council rule book for something, and on the first page, it said the president or his, and then a few pages later, it said something like, you refer to the president as Mr. President. So like, there are these formal rules that we all abide by up here. And I mean, it's in a council rulebook that's like this thin, right? But I just remember thinking, and this was after my presidency, I was like, well, that's silly because no one referred to me as Mr. President, right? Nor should you, because that's not how I identify, right? But it's housekeeping, right? I think at this point, it's very outdated. And not only is it the city council rules, but also the orders that we have that we implement for laws in the city. And I honestly, this is really just a housekeeping thing. I would like to make sure that if we are a governing body and we're enacting laws, that they should, I think, be reflective of the fact that there are women in the city as well, and that there could be women who will be council president in the future. So that's the reasoning behind it. Again, it started with the book itself, and I figured if we're going to be doing housekeeping and updating this, we should be all applying that across the board to our orders as well. So I'd like to ask for a favorable recommendation out of committee if I could, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if I can make one, but I think it has to come from the chairman.
So you'd like to make a motion to approve for 2022-033?
Logistically, I don't know if I can make a positive recommendation out of committee for these two items, or does the chairman have to do it?
Okay.
I can make a motion on both? Okay.
Yeah,
Make a motion on both.
We'll start with 033 first, and you'll make the motion to,
Sure, so I'd like to make a motion to approve 2022-33.
okay, and do we have a second? Seconded by Councilor Phelan. Any discussion on this 033? On the motion, President, I'd like to recognize Councilor Kane. Go right ahead.
So Councilor Liang and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I defer to Madam Clerk. I believe that there is a stipulation in the municipal code that already makes the language gender neutral.
We have cleaned it up a lot, and we did a lot during our recodification, but looking back, I did see some things, and we'll be sure to get those, if this passes this evening.
Okay.
Right back to our general code for that.
Got it. Just want to be clear,
Yes.
because we took a look at it and just said very specifically that all, I can't tell you the exact language, but it seemed to make room for this. So I just didn't want to be redundant here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other councilors that would like to, President, like to recognize Councilor Devine? Go ahead.
Is this just like as we reprint that one, and then the municipal, is this just for the, which one are we voting on for right now? The
The
rule
first
book?
one would be the municipal code, and the second would be the council rule book.
Okay, and is this something that we can easily do? It's not a financial burden or anything like that, right? That sounds great, perfect. Yeah.
To my understanding, yes, but again, I would defer to the clerk if I'm incorrect about that.
Yes, in fact, they have it digitally. We worked on it from 2016 to 2018, when it was passed before this body, and we will go ahead and send them this order and have it redone to show the new.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, any other councilors? So motion made by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor Phelan on 2022-033. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Mahoney. Yes. Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members, the motion carries. Then we're going to go to 2022-034.
Please, Mr. President,
I'd
I'd like
like to recognize
to-
Councilor Liang. Go
Thank you.
ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 2022-034.
Motion to approve made by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor Andronico. Any discussion on this motion? Just a point of privilege real quick on this. A lot of towns and cities across the Commonwealth, they changed from selectmen to select board. A lot of different type of government, so I would think this is a very similar situation here as a council, so I'm happy to support it. Any other Motion made by Counselor Liang, seconded by Counselor Andronico. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, motion carries. Thank you to both of you. We have a couple of public works utilities. President would like to recognize Counselor Harris. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Earlier this evening, there was a hearing for 2023-094, utility grant location Verizon, Hancock Street at Commander Shea Boulevard. Positive recommendation from the Public Works Committee.
Motion to approve made by Counselor Harris, seconded by Counselor Devine. Any discussion on the motion? Do we have to do the roll call on this one?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Mahoney. Yes. Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, motion carries.
We also held a public hearing for 2023-130, utility grant location Verizon, Broad Street and Field Street. A positive recommendation from the Public Works Committee.
Positive recommendation motion to approve made by Counselor Harris, seconded by Counselor Devine. Any discussion on this particular motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine. Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, motion carries. Any of the utilities? Counselor, you done? I think he is.
Yes.
You're done, okay. Any other reports of committees? Okay, moving on to presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrance. Yeah, I'll do it right now. So folks, as we had Ruth Gordon in here, Amphitheater Friends of, and we had State Rep Tacky Chan in here, I'd like to allow the outgoing closing remarks for our 3 outgoing counselors, Ward 5 Counselor Phelan, Ward 2 Counselor Anthony Andronico, and Counselor at Large Ann Mahoney, 3 colleagues that we've had up here for 3, 4, and 6 years. Thank you for your time and public service to the people of the city of Quincy. With that, I would like to personally start with the citation, and I'll start with Ann Mahoney because I'll do yours first. From Bruce Ayers. State Rep Ayers got a hold of me today to give me the citation. We dropped it off today. So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts House of Representatives, we hereby known to all that the House of Representatives offers sincere congratulations to Ann Mahoney in recognition of to the years of service on behalf of the people of Quincy and your steadfast leadership on the City Council. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this day, 16th day of December 2023 at the State House, Boston, Massachusetts. It's also Speaker of the House signed it with Ron Mariano and State Rep Bruce Ayers, as well as Tacky Chan, all our 3 representatives that's here in Quincy. So this will be for you. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up to the fellow counselors here, if they have any comments to outgoing Ann Mahoney. President would like to recognize Counselor Liang.
Thanks. I had a whole thing in my head on what I wanted to say. And then the way it happens, like when you start, it's just like you just can't get the words out. But yeah, gosh, what a loss, right? I think that when we started working together and then throughout the entirety of our time together, not just sitting here next to each other, but mostly offline too, and like seeing each other out there. And like, I just think that anybody watching us up here knows that you and I work so well together. You challenge me, to go further than, the questions that I'm asking that are in front of me. You always sort of like, come back and say, oh, but you should think a little bit more about that. And when I think I've got it, right, there's something else that you bring up that like opens my mind to, okay, well, that's not something I thought about before, right? And I think I was a better counselor for it. I think we all were, right? And so I think it's a huge loss to not have you up here anymore to balance that conversation out with all of us. You had jokingly said earlier that, you're going to make sure that I'm going to keep on keeping on with this work. And I know, and I hope actually that you'll continue to be somebody that is working alongside me, even if you're not sitting alongside me. I think you're an incredible asset to the city council and to the city. So I'm going to miss you a lot. And I just thank you so much for everything you've done up here. Really, I think you pushed us all for the better. So I appreciate you. And I'm sad to see you go.
Thanks.
President, I'd like to recognize Council McCarthy. Go right ahead.
Thank you, President DeBona. First, I'd like to wish Ann and her family a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday, and good luck in future endeavors. Ann always came to work on the school committee years and at the council, and you need people that are going to show up and get involved. A lot of people don't realize when they run for office, they leave themselves hanging out there, and you make decisions and you make comments and you get involved in different things, and people are quick to judge, and Ann was a very hard worker, and I wish her all the best. God bless.
Thank you. President, I'd like to recognize Councilor Kane. Go right ahead.
I am going to miss you, Councilor Mahoney. I'm going to miss you because of your energy and because of your fortitude. You're one of the strongest people I know, and you give it your all, and you're not afraid. And I appreciate and admire that. So thank you for your time being a colleague, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
President, I'd like to recognize Councilor Devine. Go right ahead.
I would also like to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. I'm sure your next year is going to be very interesting because people like you just don't stop. So I'm sure you'll be helpful to the city of Quincy, even if it's not in an official council committee. So we'll be looking forward to see what you're doing and helping, and I reach out to everyone as ex-councilors for advice, so I'm sure I'll be burning your ear too, because I like to get it from everyone that has special, unique ways of getting things done. So I think you are a constituent also. Yeah. So you have my number, but yeah. So best of luck, and thank you for all your help too. I was a new person this year, and I get a lot of help from you too. So thank you.
So Ann, I don't know if people realize this. We've run in races a lot, me and you together. First in 2013 on the school committee, and then we sat next to each other the whole time in the 2 years. And then I came up to the council, and you followed me 2 years later up here. We've been out there 2013, 2017, 2019, 21, and I can remember both of us knocking on doors. We were in the same spot. We go, okay, you're going to do that street, I'll do that one. We went our separate ways. Remember that day, how hot it was? You had the little towel. There's been many times me and her out there, and I'll tell you, she's got a lot of guts, and she's willing to take those stands, and I'm going to miss you here. School committee first with Council McCarthy and ourselves together, and then up here at the council for the last 6 years. I mean, it's been a fun ride here. I wish you the best at all your future endeavors, and I know we'll still see you around and stuff in general. So we have a citation from Senator Keenan. It's also signed by President of the Senate and also the Clerk of the Senate as well. So we also have that as well for you here on your outgoing. And then I'd like to open it up to you, Ann Mahoney, our Counselor at Large outgoing, for any closing outgoing remarks.
So I want to thank everybody so much, and I want to really let people know that I have a deep appreciation for the privilege of being able to serve here as a city councilor. And I want to thank also the administration, the staff, and the people of the city of Quincy. I know sometimes the administration might think I'm hard on them, but I'm just trying to push you to be better, Mr. Walker and everybody else. I know, Mr. Walker, I was just saying that because you're looking at me. But it is truly because of my belief of the city of Quincy, and it's truly because I truly believe in the people and the direction that we need to push our city in. And although I'm not coming back to the city council because I decided to run for mayor, and that was not, I did not win, and that is okay. Because what we do is we raise the bar by running for office. And I encourage people at home to take that fortitude, to jump in, if you think you can offer something, please come join and have that conversation, because it's what makes our community stronger and better. We saw here tonight, and I'm so proud of the Friends of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, what can happen when a community works together. And, it really can happen. And for $10,000, that's what the city invested, $10,000 into the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, what they were able to accomplish on that short budget, in comparison to the amounts of money that we spend throughout the city, that is something that we can all learn from, and I hope it continues to grow. But it goes further than that. It's the activation that happens in the city, the 99-year lease, the people that were coming out to really protect the values in the land that is our city land, to make sure that we're auditing, to make sure that we're doing the best for the taxpayers of the city of Quincy. And just recently, when we passed the taxes, when our chief financial officer said, we are keeping up. The greatest news is that we're keeping up. That people's income is keeping up with what the tax is, so it shouldn't hurt people. What I'd like to remind people is that we're not keeping up, because we have seniors that live here in the city of Quincy, and their COLA is not keeping up with the price it's costing to live here in the city of Quincy. So we have a lot of work to happen here in the city, but I know with the fortitude that I have with the people who are staying here and the people who are coming, those conversations will happen. I know that we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I'm very, very proud of the work that we were able to accomplish. And my plans for the future, I'm not sure what my plans for the future will be, but I can promise you one thing: my passion for my community, my passion for the people who live here, my passion for my role in city government will only change it. I'll be a private sector person, but that's okay. It doesn't change. The reason why I first came into public office was because I had a passion for the people that live here in the city, and I believe that it can be stronger and better by people running, and I'm just proud of the 18 years. It was part-time. I know there was a lot of questions as to what I was able to accomplish in a strong form of mayor city government, but we were able to accomplish a lot, and it was through the fortitude of a lot of the people that are here. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being able to serve the people in the city of Quincy, and I look forward to seeing you all at the grocery store and at the events that happen. And I thank you, and I'll be watching from afar. So I think Chris Walker's going to change his phone number, though, but that's okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Councilor Mahoney. Next, we have outgoing Ward 2 Councilor Anthony Andronico. This is a citation from both the Senate and the Reps State House. For your service on behalf of the people of the city of Quincy, Ward 2, and the steadfast leadership of the city council. We also got Ron Mariano, the Speaker of the House, Bruce Ayers, and Tacky Chan. And then on this one, it is, the President of this, Karen Spiegel, and Clerk of Senate, with Michael Hurley, as well as John Keenan, and we will give these to you afterwards. I'd like to also open this up to any councilors for outgoing Anthony Andronico. President, I'd like to recognize Councilor Yang.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Counselor, the thing I'd like to say about you is actually a story, right? We had a conversation when you had first come onto the council, not by way of a vote that I made for you, but remember, that wasn't a vote against you, right? But I say that because I appreciated so much the conversation we had. I didn't really know you that well or at all. And we were on the phone for quite a while, and it was about a very difficult decision, a very difficult vote. And what has transpired since then, I think, is just, it's exactly who you are, right? You are somebody who steps up to do the work, just to get things done, right? And it showed that day in the conversation, it showed in the vote, and then it showed in every single day after that, that you're up here just to be very deliberate, very thoughtful. And again, you just want to do the work. You just want to serve your community, and you just want to get things done, right? You want to be effective. And there is this light about you that you have. And I think that it'll be a big loss to us up here to not have that anymore, right? Again, I think that you just have this very sort of like calming attitude about you, but you have a light about you as well. And I think that is something that is going to be a loss to your ward, to our city, and to us up here. And I wish we had more time to work together. I think that we will in many other ways moving forward. And I just wish you the best of luck in everything you do. But you were definitely a huge asset to us up here and to the city. And I just think that, yeah, I thank you for all you've done.
Thank you, Councilor. I'd like to recognize Councilor Mahoney. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Councilor Andronico. there were a lot of things that were brought to our attention, and some of it would be the ARPA funds and different things that you push the envelope here in the council chambers. And there's work that's done both here in the council, but also behind the scenes that people don't necessarily get to see. And although our time, here is ending, I know that there's going to be many more incredible opportunities ahead in your future endeavors, whatever they may be, because you bring a lot to the table, and you are steadfast in the way that you're working for things, and I just appreciate that. I remember when you first came on, and you were coming from the school committee, and you felt some passion to be able to stand up and actually remembering what it was like to come from the school committee to stand up for your previous role, and that's important too. The lessons that we learn from what we're doing when we're in city government to be able to protect the assets that we're working for, and that's something that you did with your whole heart. So I want to thank you very much. And you also had pretty big life changes too. You got married while you were here in the city council. We saw, some real strengths and growths that were happening in your personal life, and I hope they continue to do so, and I hope to be able to continue seeing you around the city. So thank you very, very much.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Devine.
To add on to what Ann Mahoney said, you had a busy year. You also, I think you renovated your bathroom and did some of it yourself. But I'd like to say I gave you advice, but I didn't. You didn't ask me for any, but you gave me a lot of advice by observing some of the things you did, and also many of the times that we walked to different places for different meetings. I enjoyed all of them, and I learned a lot. I'm much older than you. I think I'm closer to your father's age, but you taught me many things in a very short time, so I greatly appreciate that. And I know when people say you're going to go on to greater and better things, I can only imagine where you're going, because you're a young guy and you're going to keep moving. So best of luck, and I'm sure we'll be friends going forward, I hope. Good luck.
President, I'd like to recognize Councilor Kane.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Andronico, I think the issue that Councilor Liang was referring to is the first issue that we first got to interact about. And it was really insightful to understand how serious you took your role and decided to take this role every day. I very much appreciated the perspective that you brought as a young person, as a person who had insight to what was going on in the state level and could connect the dots to what we do here on a city basis. But you've been a great colleague. Between your time on school committee and now in city council, you've been around for a while. So people know you, and I think you might be 30. So you have a lot of time left. This will not be the last that we see of you. And so, and like none of my colleagues here, nobody's dying. So, these aren't sort of farewell words. These are see you in a different capacity. And especially you, we look forward to seeing great things.
I'd like to recognize Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. First of all, I know that Anthony enjoyed sitting on the senior citizen side, especially between myself and Mr. Harris. I think we kept him entertained over here. I think he wanted to get his seat moved a lot of times, but we kept him over here. But as Councilor Kane just said, 30 years old, that's a good number. Going to have probably, a big family, a lot of involvement in Quincy, probably not going anywhere and probably going to show up again very soon. So it was a honor and a privilege to work with him, and we got a lot done and had a good time doing it. Thank you, Anthony.
Anthony, you've been a great colleague as well. I have to say, I was first up here with a different group. You didn't know what curveball was going to be thrown down there behind the scenes and on the city council. I can remember some colleagues putting out votes and going, I'll withdraw it at the end, seeing what everybody was at. So you had to keep on your toes up here, and you were true to your word, and very intelligent, very smart, very articulate, and I think you still have the future in front of you. I really do. With your experience now at school committee and council, you were up here for 3 years. You did a great job, been a good colleague. So I wish you the best in all your future endeavors, and I'll open it up to Anthony Andronico, our Ward 2 outgoing councilor. Go right ahead.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues to their very kind words. 6 years in local government, and I also just wrapped up 5.5 up at state government. So it's a good time, I think, to make a clean transition out of local and state government overall. I turned 30 this past year and still somehow managed to get 6 years in of that type of experience in my 20s. But honestly, I'm looking forward to what comes next. At 23 years old, I decided to jump in, as Councilor Mahoney had noted. If you think you have something to offer, jump in, don't wait. And I had done that and luckily got a seat on the school committee. And, the journey over the past 6 years has been absolutely incredible. The folks that are up here, the folks that I served with on the school committee, whether that's in an elected capacity or you're a QPS employee or a City of Quincy employee, there are so many people that make this city function and sacrifice a lot of their time. And there are a lot of opportunities that these folks could go and pursue, but they choose public service because they care about Quincy, they care about the people in it, and they care about making a difference and making our little slice of the world a little better place than it was the day before. So that's the attitude that I'm going to continue to have moving forward. I am looking forward to being a private citizen for the first time in my adult life. I know my wife and my dog are also looking forward to that. I will absolutely find something to do, I think, on my Monday nights moving forward next year. But it's been an honor and a privilege, and I'm wishing you all up here the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor. And to our outgoing Ward 5 City Councilor Chuck Phelan, for your years of service on behalf of the people in Ward 5 and your steadfast leadership on the City Council, this entire membership extends its best wishes and expresses the hope for your future good fortune and continued success in all future endeavors. This is from the House of Representatives, our three, Speaker of the House Mariano, State Rep Ayers, and State Rep Chan, and then you also have one from the Senate as well. So we will give you these afterwards. Before I get into outgoing remarks, I also want to make sure that we're not going to keep the audience, but we'd all like to get a couple photos afterwards. Councilor Kane, is that okay? We get a couple photos afterwards, so this will be the last time we had all 9 of us up here. So I'd like to open it up to Councilor Liang. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Phelan. So, okay, this thing always sticks with me, and I always joke with people about it, but you always say that you started serving the city on the city council in '88, and here's all this history. And I always latch onto it because that's when I was born, right? And I share that to not make you feel bad, but actually no, but in all seriousness, to share that for my entire life here in this city, you have served this city. You've made this city better in your service, not just on the city council, but for me in particular, in your service to the Asian community. You know what I mean? That's something that you committed to, and I think have carried through your work, not just when you were elected, not just when you were employed, but in your day job as well, through your family's business. I mean, it's just, you have made just even my life existing here in the city better in my entire life of being here because you've served the city that long, and that's just one person, right? Think about everyone else in the city you've impacted in those 35 years. And then above and beyond that, I'm sure you didn't start in '88, right? You just got elected in '88. And so it's just, I just think it's incredible. I can't say in words just in one night how much gratitude I think we all owe to you for giving your life to making the city better in so many different ways. And I know that, like Councilor Gaines said, no one's here is dying. No one's stopping their work, right? But I do think it's important, especially with you, to pause and recognize the decades of service that you've given of your own personal life and your time and your valuable time at that to make the city better for so many people. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, from my community as a colleague, thanks for making my life here great. Thanks for making so many people's lives here in this city great. We're better off for having you. And I just think it's a huge, huge loss to not have your knowledge and your history to contribute to these conversations, because it's been an incredible asset. I know certainly for me, when we're sort of going into the rabbit hole in a conversation, you're like, wait a minute, let me save you 30 minutes because I'll give you the history of how we got here. That's invaluable information. And so I just hope that it's okay if I just sort of text you sort of in council meetings and be like, give me the history on this, because you're such a tremendous asset for so many reasons to all of us and to the city. So thank you, really just thank you for everything you've done.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Kane.
I'm sorry I can't really see you, Councilor Phelan, but I'm going to lean up, and you're going to lean up too. Nice to see you. You are the last of the true institutional knowledge of this council. The people who are the most senior are now me, Noel, and Nina, which, you know, you can all decide how that goes. But in your case, you know things about this city, how it works, how it has worked, how it operates, how it functions, the true blood that flows through its system and makes it work for the people of this city, through different administrations, through your own capacity and roles, the many roles that you've served. Most recently before this was IT, which you were a delight. You're a delight to work with in any capacity, and I will miss that up here. For your sensibility, your balance, your even-keeled judgment and decision-making, and also your friendship. So thank you for your time up here. Thank you for your service to the city of Quincy. I know that we will continue to see you around town, but I thank you for your work.
I'd like to recognize Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, that was quite a lineup, you, Nina, and Noel, huh? I'll think about that. How old are you anyhow? I mean, Nina was, I mean, you know. 66. Are you? Are you? Seems like you've been forever. I mean, county, city, county, back to the city, back to the council, and not just Chuck Phelan, but the Phelan family that's sitting on the back wall back there. His dad, who was a Quincy cop. You know, it's all Quincy. It's all world, all Quincy right here with Chuck Phelan. When I first came on, he was the guy that I went right to try to understand how everything kind of flowed up here. I knew a few people, but Chuck was instrumental, just especially with the finances and the ordinance and those committees that seemed to make everything rock and roll here in Quincy, and his knowledge was invaluable. He's the type of guy that was always respectful. You know, he's got his integrity. He'd deal with everybody. You know, he'd welcome everybody in. It wasn't just his group. It wasn't the city group. It was the entire city. And it was all the wards. If he could help you in your ward, he'd help you in your ward, you know. So, you know, Ward 5 had a special guy, and it was great to see him come back. He wanted to get back into it, and he's just been productive all the time, and just a good guy to call on. So I wish him all the luck and a relaxing retirement, let's call it, and a few more trips down to Florida, Chuck. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Councilor Andronico.
Thank you. Chuck, it's been a pleasure. You know, as has been mentioned, just the knowledge base that you brought was very helpful for me coming on in 2021, where at times we were still doing Zoom meetings. I can't tell you how many times after when we finally got back in person after a meeting, you would be telling a story from when you were first elected back in '88 and really discussing why things functioned in a particular way within the city, and that I always found that valuable. But more than anything, I deeply appreciated the way that you conducted business and that you gave everyone a fair shot. You took everything that came before us on an issue-by-issue basis. You weren't always a yes, you weren't always a no. It depended on what the issue was before you. And that's something that I deeply admire in elected officials and public servants. And I'm just deeply appreciative for all you've done for the city of Quincy. So thank you.
Chuck, I mean, what can I say? You know, oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead, you guys. I'll go right after you. I'd like to recognize Councilor Devine. Go right ahead.
Sorry. I thought you always go last.
I always go last. I was looking over and seeing.
All right. Well, clearly I'm still the new guy. I'm already making mistakes like that. But Chuck is also a person, Councilor Phelan is a person that has been helping me along this journey that I've been doing for the last 11 months now. And I greatly appreciate it. We're both Severian graduates. So, you know, I might have to call you in here if we have to take McCarthy out, you know. Oh, you're a BC guy too? Well, I wasn't worried about you, I was more worried about McCarthy. Yeah. But, no, Councilor Phelan, you're an exception. You've given so much of your time, so I think everything that everybody's already said is exactly true. I compare us to Boston. I think Quincy's way better than Boston now. Like, we're in a league of our own. And Boston has the Green Dragon, where they used to have the revolutionary people in there, and Quincy has the Sly Fox, and we have a few revolutionary people down there, and I know they will be meeting more with Chuck Phelan when he's just Chuck Phelan, not the counselor. And but I wish you the best. I hope you do take all those great vacations that you're hopefully planning and enjoy yourself. But I'll be reaching out to you, so I'm sorry you won't get a full retirement. Best of luck.
I'd like to recognize Council Mahoney.
Thank you, Rich. Councilor Phelan, I just want to thank you. I've known you for my 18 years of working in the city government, and you've always been fair and equitable in anything that comes along. And you always had just a charming way of telling a story that kind of sets the pace for what people are doing. I think that will be missed in general in city government, because it is nice to have somebody who has a long-term history of things. And that's not to suggest that, because you're not that much older than me, so I will say that. You could be my brother, in fact, because I'm the youngest of a large family. But what I really want to wish you is a happy second retirement, because I remember your first retirement up here, and I was a little shocked when you were retiring at that point, but happy to see that you weren't done with our city. And I don't think you are now either. I think this is just a happy pause for being able to get some more family time in, but we still will see Chuck Phelan and the Leiden family as a giant asset for the city of Quincy. And I know there's been some huge losses in your family during the time that we've been here too. So I have always had you and your family in my thoughts and prayers. So I just want to thank you, and thank you for your time and your energy that you've provided to the city. Thanks.
My story was in 1993. Chuck Phelan was the council president, and I was graduating from Quincy High School in '93. And he was the person giving the speech at my graduation. And when he came up here and he said he was going to run 4 years ago and come up here to replace Kirsten Hughes as the Ward 5 councilor, I was excited. Really going to miss Chuck. He was the book of knowledge that we had once with Joe Finn. And then when Joe Finn left, it kind of went to Brian Palmucci. And then when Brian kind of left, it was all Chuck. Dave, I think you're next. But Chuck's been a great colleague. He's been fair. He's a person of reason. I'd ask him offline, I'd say, how would the old council deal with this? We would do this, and he'd give us little pointers on how the older councilors that he used to serve with to the current councilors would serve with. And he had a little bit of book of knowledge with dealing with different mayors, where a lot of us have been under only one mayor. The last that been the two hinges was Councilor Finn, that had been with Phelan and Koch, but all of us have been with Mayor Koch. So we only know him, but Councilor Phelan had been with other mayors. And I know you've been in other capacities on the school committee, but as the council, we're really going to miss you. Thank you for the short-term rental legislation that we worked on in the last few years. We put that into legislation. The Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, thank you for that. You were out in front of that. You made it easier for us councilors. And you took stands. You took stands and you represented the people. And I know when you walked with me a few times before, out when I was running for councilor at large, and you'd hear all the issues out there, and then when you got on, you just represented those people on what their interests were in your particular ward. Right over there on Fennell Street, outside your house, we had a whole bunch of objections, and you got right on it. So I want to thank you for representing the people in their best interests, even when it's going against the tide, and I'm really going to miss you. So thank you so much, Chuck, and I'd like to open it up to Chuck Phelan for closing remarks.
Okay, I'm only 66. First of all, my first experience with the Quincy City Council was in 1978. Now I'm really going old. And Steve McGrath, who was a Ward 5 councilor, appointed me on a committee on Wollaston Center. And it's been continuous since then. A lot of times volunteer positions, which I will continue to do. That was things that I've committed to, and I will continue to do that. But it's just been a long it's been a long time, but it's been a pleasurable time. I've enjoyed being active. Council Mahoney said the passion and stuff like that. I always had a great passion for the city. This will end, I think my family working for the city, it will be over 100 years ago when my great-grandfather, who I'm named after, Charles J. Riley, was a sergeant on the Quincy Police Department. And then my grandfather was a firefighter, head of the firefighters union, first head and brought the credit union in. And then my father was a longtime police officer. So they all looked at me as the black sheep because I became the politician. And they said, how can you work up there with no civil service status? But it's one of the key things that has happened both when I first came on the city council and afterwards was the passion I saw from a lot of those older councilors, but also when I came back, same passion that is with all the current councilors. I wish both Councilor Andronico and Councilor Mahoney all the best. We're going off together, and I know that none of us are probably going to go away we're not really leaving anything, but we'll be doing it as private citizens at that point. And that's also as critical as being up here at the city council. But being here, you begin to learn the personal sacrifices that people made to be the councilors, to be out there when sometimes the things get very controversial, people get very heated. You have to sit there and remain calm and try to sift through everything and then make a reasonable decision that works best for all the people in the city of Quincy. And the councilors who are staying, I know that that's how you've worked, and I know that's how you will continue to work. And I remember when Steve McGrath left the city council, he said, and he was my mentor, and I think of him quite often. He said, it's one of the finest deliberatory boards in the state. And I agree. Having served both, and we didn't have email. Now it's email. You don't do as many phone calls. It's a lot of answering, sometimes crazy emails, but you're still answering them. And trying to get back to people and trying to represent your area. At this time, I would also like to take a minute just to thank the council staff, the staff we have here, Sue, auditor extraordinaire. It was one of the best positions when we put that in. It was first time we didn't have it. We used to work both with the person who did all the city stuff and the thing. She's a true auditor. She sits there. She does the watchdog. Any question I can go in, you can give me the answer. So thank you very much. Nikki, you came from big shoes. And I know why some of the language is in the council of book, because I know some of the guys who were here before you. But Nikki, you stepped in that role and you have grabbed it. And thank you so much for all your time here. And Jen, you're fabulous. Calling you up, trying to get a meeting together for the new councilor. I was a little confused. She finally said, why don't you just call Chuck? And we did. We put it together because they have to do it before January 23rd. And chairman of the zoning said, can you put the meeting together? I said, nope, I'm not going to be here. But I was happy to, why? Because it was helping those people off of 44 Carew Street in that neighborhood. And they deserve representation. And it's going to be a little difficult of an issue, and it does need a public meeting. So I was happy to jump in and help. So I thank all the council staff. It's been great. I thank all our regular staff here, all the department heads in the city who I have harangued. And maybe a couple of times a week. Al's here. I know Jim's going to say, you might get tired of me, but I'm going to be calling you all the time. And he has. And I've had great fortune to work with some excellent people. I feel very good about the future of the city. There were some great people who have passed on and moved on, dedicated, extremely dedicated to the Quincy. And one thing you find a little more in government than you don't find in private, because I've been in both, is the passion and dedication that people have for their job. And they're here. They might not be making sometimes as much money. Benefits are great, though. But their dedication and everything they've done. So I want to thank all that. I want to thank my family because when I left in '96, my wife said, "You better never ever run again." And then when the time came and Kirsten Usen, there was no one looking to run for the seat of city council. And I appreciate the comments by the council saying, we need people to run for office and have that passion. At that point, I said, well, maybe I should step up. I should run. And she said, okay, if you want to do it, go ahead. If I did. But they've had to put up, families had to put up with a lot. My son, Charles there, who's Charles Jr. And I'd also like to point out Frank McHugh. Frank McHugh was one of my first campaign managers back several years ago. And we were out not too recently, and he said to me, well, I was at your first meeting, I'm going to be at your last. So Frank is here in the audience, so thank you so much. And my final thank you is for all the people of Ward 5. A quote I used the first time I left from Thomas Jefferson is, these offices aren't ours. They belong to the people of Ward 5 in the city of Quincy. We're just temporary occupants of them, and at this time, I'm going to hand my office back to the people of Quincy, and I know they'll do very well with Dan Minton. He has the passion to do a good job, and I know he'll do a great job. And I would say the one thing, Mr. President, whoever going to be the next president, we've gone way too long without a councilors reunion. So I think that coming up the next year is something we should be doing. And that would be one thing I'd be happy to be on a committee for, okay?
Put that in a form of motion?
So my final comments is just thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the city of Quincy. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my fellow councilors. Thank you.
Just real quick before we get into the closing and the scheduling committees, I just want to thank our auditor, Susan, for all your hard work over this last term here, the last 2 years of being the council president. Nicole Crispell, you've done a fantastic job with all the elections and what we've gone through, and you're getting ready for the next one, the presidential one coming up pretty soon here. March 5th, first one?
March 5th.
March 5th, okay, we'll be talking a lot about that, numbers and everything. And Jen, clerk committees, thank you so much for all your correspondence and behind the scenes and working with Chris all the time, and we're constantly moving stuff around and what we need to do. And thanks for Ann and Teresa in the office that have been our correspondents for our emails and stuff from other department heads and ZBAs and planning boards and all those other commissions. So I thank all 5 of you for what you do up there. We've obviously got out of most of, knock on wood, the COVID phase where we got back into the council chambers. So we'll get more into that into the New Year's, but I want to thank the 5 of you for everything that you do for us here in this, for us as well as what you do for the city. So thank you. We can get a round of applause for them. Thank you. All right, motions, orders, and resolutions. Scheduling of committee meetings and public hearings. So folks, we're going to be going into Monday, January 8th, which is going to be our 10 a.m. inauguration swearing in right here in the council chambers. And then the following meeting will be Monday, January 22nd, in the city council meeting here. We'll have a different council. I'm going to miss all of you. I miss this group. And I thank you, everything for you, all you guys have done, moving us into, and I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. Really enjoy. Motion enjoyed made by Councilor Kane.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I don't second that yet, actually.
Okay, no second. Go right ahead.
I just want to say thank you to you, Mr. President. No, I mean, like, you're running things along as you do as our council president, right? And so I think everyone's like eager to get out of here. And but you've been great. You brought us back in person after we've been completely virtual for 2 years before that. And I think you did it with a really smooth transition. You got us right back on board with the work that we needed to get done. And you bring a lot of humor, I think, to the work that we do up here, right? Sometimes things get a little bit spicy. And again, I think that with your demeanor and the way you carry yourself, you really, you get right to the work. You get right to the comments that we're making. And again, you bring some lightness to it all, I think. I've had a great time serving under you as our president, and I look forward to continuing working together as your colleagues. So thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. Here, here, thank you. Thank you. So motion adjourned made by Counselor Kane, seconded by Counselor Yang. All those in favor say aye. Is now adjourned. It is 9:19 PM. Thank you. Yeah, we can get a photo real quick.